Wyoming, where the sole representative there in the House, Republican Harriet Hageman, was met with fiery criticism and yelling yesterday at a town hall in her home state. While respectful at first, the crowd grew rowdy over President Trump's proposed executive order to eliminate mail-in voting, a practice allowed by the state. Take a listen to just a piece of that exchange.
We have mail-in ballots. My question to you was, how do you feel personally of stripping Americans of those foundational tools of mail-in ballots?
Tools?
Mail-in ballots.
Mail-in ballots are not foundational tools. Exercising your right to vote without a mail-in ballot. You are absolutely fully capable of exercising your right to vote without a ballot.
Joining us now, former Trump White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Matthews and former Democratic New York Congressman Joseph Crowley. Congressman, you've been the member at the podium before. What do you think is going through the member's mind at that point? What does this tell you just about the environment that Republicans and Democrats alike are entering into at this point? Republicans having to defend everything that Trump says and, of course, then the legislation that they themselves voted to pass.
It's probably one of the more difficult things about the job itself, although it is a requirement of the job. We're representatives. We're not senators. We're representatives. We're elected every 2 years. We are supposed to have the pulse of the electorate. And a tool to gain that pulse is through town halls. And I know it's difficult. I know it was difficult for me back when we passed the Affordable Care Act. That we had to go out and sell it. We had to talk to our constituents about it on both sides, the right and the left. We took a lot of incoming because of that. And some members lost their seats over it. Knowing when they voted for it, they may very well lose their seats. That's the coverage they took. They were willing to lose their seat over something. I don't see right now what any Republican is willing to lose their seat over. They're so afraid of losing their seat because they are of Donald Trump. They really don't, I don't think they're based on anything of principle.
Yeah, I do think that that's going to be the key line of defense here. But Sarah, our producer Kyle Stewart reports that the mood at these town halls, specifically this one, was actually pretty respectful when they were talking about local issues. It got intense once the focus turned national. So what does that signal to you about the mood that Republicans are operating in right now?
I think that voters know that this will decrease their ability to vote and their access to voting if Trump is out there and saying that people shouldn't be voting by mail, and even going as far as wanting to sign this executive order ending mail-in voting. Not that I think that he would have the legal authority to do so, but the point being that if you look back at the 2020 election, Trump was discouraging mail-in voting in the months leading up to the election, and that was a large portion of why he lost the election then, was because he was discouraging his base and his voters and saying that they can't trust that system. And so I know that these Republican elected officials at these town halls are freaking out, and so are Republican campaign operatives across the country, because heading into 2026, this is not what they want to be focused on. They don't want to be out there saying that mail-in voting isn't safe and defending Trump, because as we know, they have to defend every word of Trump and everything that he stands by. And so it's going to be a really tricky situation for them, because they know that they need to be encouraging their voters to go and vote by mail, because that will just increase turnout for them.
Yeah, and at best, this muddies the waters, right? We were talking in our last hour about the ways that Republicans have historically, and even most recently in 2024, seen gains and had successes when it comes to mail-in voting. It's why President Trump, as a candidate in 2024, reversed course from 2020 and was promoting on big screens at the rallies that I went to that people should vote by mail if that was their preferred method of voting. But Congressman, I want to turn back to the ground in Wyoming and play more of a little bit of that back and forth from a town hall. Listen to that.
Where do you stand personally on stripping Americans from those foundational tools? And if you support it, then how do you defend the charge that it's more than a policy choice and not a push for authoritarian control that undermines election integrity?
You're using the right buzzwords, but the buzzwords don't really mean anything when we're talking about a republic and we're talking about protecting the integrity of our elections. So I am well aware of the challenges and problems with mail-in balloting.
Okay, so Wyoming law allows any registered voter to request a mail-in ballot, just in case any voters in Wyoming are watching us and they needed some clarification on the state laws as they stand. But this is just the issue of the day, right? What does it say about what Republicans are going to have to defend against? Is it going to be a buzzword, to borrow the word, over mail-in voting? Is it going to be the big, beautiful bill? Is it going to be Medicaid? I mean, where do you see this going? There's so much time on the clock.
I think they're lost in the message right now. They have Epstein out there. They have so many things they're grappling with. What I do see very clearly, though, if you take what's happening in Texas, and by the way, I think what these state reps are doing right now, it's like the Alamo. They know they're going to lose the battle. You know, they're outnumbered, they're overwhelmed, they're going to lose this battle. But remember who won the war in Texas? The Texans beat the Mexicans in the end, and that was the outcome. So be careful what you ask for. You add this in, the issue of mail-in ballots. It really is about voter suppression and using any way in which Donald Trump can cheat to win the next election. You combine those two together, but also, again, it's distraction. It's about sending troops here into D.C. There are many distractions. You know, I think all focus, when people come back in September, they want to be on the big, beautiful bill. It won't be. It's going to be on Epstein and other issues.
It's going to be on Epstein, and also the likelihood that the government could shut down. I think that's going to be a pretty key one. But Sarah, I'll finish off with you. President Trump said this whole mail-in ballot issue came to mind after he talked about the election with none other than Russian President Vladimir Putin. So given your time working in the last Trump White House, what do you make of that? The relationship with Putin now potentially informing some domestic pushes?
I think it just goes to show that a little bit of flattery with Donald Trump makes him putty in your hands. Look, Putin knew by telling Trump, you won the 2020 election, you shouldn't have the mail-in voting, it was fraudulent. That would butter him up and get him in a mindset where he would want to help Putin accomplish his goals, which is to increase the size of territory that he will be able to get from Ukraine in a potential deal. And so Trump is now out there saying, well, look, Putin wants to do this deal for me. And I know it's because Putin was trying to feed him all these things, probably saying things such as, you'll get the Nobel Peace Prize if you help me secure this deal. And so it's just pathetic, honestly, because on the world stage, our leaders should stand strong, and Trump is so focused on 2020 and relitigating that issue, even though it's been relitigated in audits and the courts and everything. He had his own attorney general tell him at the time that he lost, and there's been zero evidence ever of any meaningful voter fraud that would have overturned the outcome of the 2020 election. But now you have Putin manipulating him by using exactly what he knows will work on Trump, so that way he can get what he wants rather than what would benefit the United States and our national security.
Sarah Matthews and former Congressman Joe Crowley talking about the politics of policy, foreign and domestic. We thank you for coming on.